I believe that education is how we build citizens, museum directors, and artists of the future, and it's how we transform our world. So that's a little job of yours. So I'm not going to say much except have a wonderful day. Please take the time to look around our exhibitions at some point. Are we turning them on today? Yeah. And I want to hand over to my new colleague, Shoba Kavakan. I'm not going to do it now. Shoba, who is, I had that perfectly before, who is the board co-chair of the New York City Arts Education Roundtable. Shoba, I'm so sorry to do this. Yeah, okay, well.
The mask. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. So my name, again, is Shoba Kavanakudio, and I, along with Gary Padmore, who's not here today, am one of the board co-chairs of the New York City Arts and Education Roundtable, and on behalf of the organization, it is my honor, real honor, to welcome you. I feel a little emotional. It's the first time we're back here in 2 years, right? I think that deserves a round of applause. So just to begin, the Roundtable would like to acknowledge that we work and live on unceded lands. The place that is widely known as Queens Museum and Flushing Meadows Corona Park exists on the contemporary and ancestral homelands of the Canarsie, Munsee, Lenape, and the Matanacock people. These sovereign nations are still thriving in New York City, and we continue to occupy their lands. We would like to give a moment of respect to them, as well as to the Black and immigrant communities, and recognize that all of our pasts, presents, and futures are intertwined, these of which have helped build the city that we know today. I also want to take a moment to acknowledge that while today is a moment of celebration, collective trauma continues. Just this morning, there was an incident that happened in Brooklyn. I'm sure all of us got notifications on our smartphones. And in fact, some of our colleagues may even be impacted with travel delays. So let's take a moment and just take a collective breath. So if we can all inhale in and exhale. One more time, inhale in and exhale. I hope that this is a reminder to take care of yourself and to take care of each other as we continue with the day. So, as I said, I woke up this morning so excited to be back in person. I can't believe that it's been 2 years since our community has gathered. And so much has happened that I think many of us did not anticipate. And so before we look ahead, I want to take a moment just to look back. So I remember it was March 9th, 2020, and I remember that because it was my birthday, and I had just shared cookies with my class at City College. And later on that night, I hopped on the phone with Kimberly Olsen, our executive director, and then board co-chair, my partner for many years, Jennifer DeBella. And we were on the phone till close to midnight. I remember pacing in circles around my kitchen as we talked, discussing ways in which we could best support our community with the information that we had at that moment. But in just a few days, so much changed. And that is how our very first community conversation on Zoom was born. And that first community conversation, we had 100 people on Zoom, mostly because at the time we didn't really know how Zoom worked and that we had a maximum amount of people we were allowed on our account. But in fact, we actually had hundreds of people register for the event. And so we learned that there was a need for our community to come together, and we continued to learn about Zoom. And we continue to learn so much as an organization, as a community, as individual artists, and as administrators. In these last 2 years, each of us went through lots of change, embracing what we could to keep our heads up. I, for one, lost my 2 dogs that I had for 17 years, And then 6 months later, I gained 2 dogs who are now giant 1-year-old puppies. I learned how to crochet, completed many home projects, and I got married on Zoom. Married by Amy Harris, actually, one of our conference co-chairs and one of my dear friends. And I had attendees from India, from Trinidad and Tobago, from Senegal, from Canada, and all over the US, including Hawaii. So being virtual has some advantages because many of these people would not have been able to be part of that special moment had we not had Zoom. But we also experienced huge loss. In addition to losing loved ones and jobs, homes, many of us lost a way of life. And as we contemplate how to resume, many of us are thinking about how to shift our practices in our work and how we live. What I did see during this time was people comforting each other in a way that I did not think possible. And the arts ed community come together to advocate, to support, and to heal. During this time, I know even personally, it was the arts ed community where I found comfort. And much of that also came from my students. We find comfort in our students. This was also a time when important polarizing conversations happened about race and about equity in the arts. I learned a lot, I listened a lot, my heart was broken a lot. I learned even more how to live in an uncomfortable space, and I learned when I needed to speak up. My dear friend and one of our esteemed board members, Michael Wiggins, recommended a book, Radical Friendship, 7 Ways to Love Yourself and Find Your People in an Unjust World. Whenever Michael recommends a book, I always read it. And in it, Kate Johnson, the author, in her introduction, she started by posing 2 really important questions that really left an impression on me. And I've been thinking about a lot. Number 1, what is the practice that can wake us up to the dynamics of privilege and oppression that exists within us and between us? And number 2, how do we ever connect authentically across the differences that our society has so painfully divided us by? I'm going to read them again. What is the practice that can wake us up to the dynamics of privilege and oppression that exists within us and between us? And how do we ever connect authentically across the differences that our society has so painfully divided us by? As artists and educators, we come together to learn, discuss, and figure out how to make meaningful change in the lives of our students. But we need to also include making meaningful change in the lives of each other. How do we work together as a community with our differences and not allow those differences to put space between us? At our opening keynote yesterday, Dr. Indira Adwaru asked, whose stories can you amplify? Whose voices can you amplify? I hope that this year's conference will help us think more deeply about this. My wish for all of us during FaceToFace is that we continue to ask hard questions and leave inspired. And of course, since we are actually face-to-face, that we embrace in person being among our community. As you attend your sessions, whether today in person or over the course of the next month, think about the choices you make and how it impacts future generations of New York City arts educators, as well as young people. To quote Mahogany L. Brown, the poet who inspired us as we kicked off FaceToFace yesterday, art births change. And that made a real impact on me. So I ask you to think about, what do you need to do to be part of that change? And how does your artistry factor into that? As the director of the graduate program in educational theater at the City College of New York, I have been honored for our program to host FaceToFace in our beautiful Shepherd Hall since 2012. But one of the priorities of the Roundtable is to specifically highlight the arts education community across all 5 boroughs in New York City. So we are especially grateful to Queens Museum for hosting us so we can learn more about the extraordinary work being done in this borough. We also prioritized continuing to think about eliminating barriers, and we hope that by having a hybrid conference, we have made the conference more accessible and more affordable. And with that, on behalf of the FaceToFace Conference Committee, as one of the co-chairs of this year's conference, along with my fellow conference co-chairs, who I'm not sure if they're all here, but is Jarrell Cooper here? Not yet. Okay, Alexandra Lopez. She will also be here. They will be here later. And Amy Harris, who is right there. I think you can give her a bigger round of applause. Yes. It is my pleasure to officially kick off FaceToFace while we are actually face-to-face today. So have a good conference, everyone, and please make sure you say hello to me, to the conference co-chairs, and to our board of directors. We would all like to hear from you. And now I am happy to pass it on. Can what? Oh, yeah, that's a great idea. Can the board of directors raise their hand? Who's here from the board? Put those hands up. Oh, hi, Eve. I didn't see you back there. All right, I will now pass it on to our executive director, Kimberly Olsen.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Shobha, and it's so great to see everybody. Oh my goodness. My name is Kimberly Olsen, and I am the executive director of the New York City Arts and Education Roundtable. I can't stop but smiling just seeing all of you here, all of you, the backs of your heads, your legs, my goodness. And so before we transition into our plenary panel, I'm just going to put on my cruise director hat and give you some housekeeping notes. And I think last but not least, a thank you for being here. Truly, the work that you have been doing over the past 2 years and beyond that has been unbelievable. A highlight of my job is getting to meet and work with educators, administrators, artists like yourselves. And hearing from you better enables me to support and advocate for our field. So please, I mean it. If I'm buzzing around, please stop me, say hello, introduce yourself. It's so important that the Roundtable really knows who is in our community so that we best can support and act in service to you. So with that, I am now going to toss it to my colleague, the moderator of today's panel, and just an amazing leader within our community, Kimaada, Gendre, Director of Education here at the Queens Museum. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Do you hear me now? Okay. Wonderful. First and foremost, I just want to say how grateful I am that we're hosting this wonderful event. And just to take another pause to think about what happened today in our New York City community, but also as a reminder how important it is to come together as community when things like that happen. And I think that really is going to resonate throughout the day, that we're here together talking about the importance of arts education, but also talking about how important community care and coming together as community is so important. At the Queens Museum, we used the last year to really lean into the uncertainty that was and still is synonymous with the COVID-19 pandemic. It has definitely been a time for pivoting, a word I am sure we have all used frequently during the past 2 years, but also has been a time for learning and unlearning. As an educator, I can say that my biggest takeaway has been that the normal that existed pre-pandemic should not be what we aspire to go back post-pandemic. So now I'm going to introduce my wonderful colleagues for our welcome panel. When I was asked to recommend someone for a keynote speaker, there were people that I thought of, but I think for me, the education team here at the Queens Museum, as well as my colleagues in the public programs department, specifically our community organizer, and our community partner, BordeAndo. They really came to the forefront of my mind when I thought of who best represents this idea of welcoming you here today at the Queens Museum. So we put together a little panel, a little discussion, and today's welcome panel hopes to highlight Queens Museum's mission of centering community at the heart of our art education programs and our cultural food pantry. So I would like to introduce our panelists right now. Laura Sloan, who's Queens Museum's Education Manager for Schools, Family, and Art Access Programs. Gianina Enriquez, Queens Museum's Community Organizer and lead of the Cultural Food Pantry. Carmen Tercero, one of the leaders of the community organization BordeAndo and literary class coordinator of the Cultural Food Pantry. And also from the education team, we have Guido Garacuchera, who is the program manager for our Queens Museum's New Yorkers program, and he'll be sitting in as our translator today. I also want to just mention someone who's absent today that was going to kind of bring this panel full circle, and that's Niceli, Portugal. And she has worked with us in the education department, really enhancing and leading a lot of our family programs, specifically because she is so connected to the community, to the Corona Elmhurst community. And she works very closely with both Gia and Carmen, as well as the rest of us. And she's a teaching artist, and she was our lead teaching artist for our programs, but we also created a special position within the education department for her to highlight all of her vision and her art practice, but also to integrate it with our vision and our mission here at the Queens Museum. And I think it speaks so importantly of what it means for an institution to house and honor and host teaching artists who are also bringing their own knowledge and their own practices and their own vision. So we're going to start today with some questions that I hope sparks some inspiration, but also some questions. And at any point in time afterwards, please feel free to come up to us, with any questions and follow up. So I'm going to start with Laura. So in your role here at the Queens Museum, what are some ways that you center the needs of community at the heart of our education programs?
Okay, testing. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Kimaada. All right. I personally think the best way to center community in anything is to work with the community, listen to the community, and really check in with their needs. And we really focused with the community in our partnership schools. We spoke with them during the pandemic and really checked in with what they needed in the moment, especially the impact that the pandemic had on students. We wanted to see what types of art making and residency projects that they wanted to work on. We continued with virtual residencies during the pandemic, really touching base with the teachers and the students personally to see what they needed during that time. We're now back on site in schools with residencies back in person, so we're excited about that. And working with multilingual teaching artists in the schools as well, and then bringing the students back to the museum space. We're looking forward to returning in the fall with school tours and workshops, but inviting them to family programs, so kind of working in between programming with, across the board, these communities. Centering student work in the heart of the museum too. So we work with Queensborough Arts Festival to center student artwork up in the galleries. In May, we're gonna have an exhibition and a celebration for them. At the end of our residencies, we'll also feature student artwork in the museum. So really giving students a voice too, and a space in the museum as part of our community and the importance of that. For our art access programs, programming for people with disabilities, really a community that was deeply impacted during COVID-19, during the pandemic. The importance of continuing virtually, giving them a space online when we can't in person. Working with local community organizations. We work with Queens Community House for their Creative Imagination program. And really just hearing from them and what they need. We're currently working with an organization called Mixed Design for an access cohort to really bring them into the space and see what they need on site at the museum too, which will help for future programmings when we return fully for on-site programs. So really.
Thank you. Just a little follow-up question to that. And after, I kind of highlighted the work that we did with Niceli, who, I didn't tell you why she's not here. So unfortunately, Niceli currently has COVID, so she wasn't able to kind of be here to lend her voice, but we definitely want to uplift the work that she did. And so I wanted to kind of highlight how working with teaching artists whose work centers around local communities through their own initiatives and work, like how does that help to elevate Queens Museum's education programming?
So it's been wonderful having Niceli here. I'm so sorry she couldn't join us today. The importance of having somebody from the communities, bringing in the communities and working with them has been a huge asset. Niceli also leads an organization called Escuelita en Casa, and so she would welcome them in to join us on our family programming. She's also helped out with our cultural food pantry, which Gia will talk about in a bit, but inviting the families that attend there to our family programs, drop-in family programs on the weekends, and also including them in our free community camp too. So offering them a space and having free summer programming for them was a super important focus for us during this time.
Thank you, Laura. Gia. So we've been talking a little bit about the Cultural Food Pantry, so I would love for you to kind of answer why did the Queens Museum decide to host a food pantry, and how is it evolving as a cultural food pantry?
Hi, my name is Gianina Enriquez. I am the community organizer, and I just want to say that in June 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, actually was the beginning of the pandemic, and we are located in Corona, Queens, that was the epicenter of all of this craziness. So when we saw the people who was just crying, they have so much pain, uncertain, they didn't know what was going on. And remember in March 2020, when the mayor said, we're gonna close everything for 2 weeks, and we're still, so we were in that time, talking with the people. I was receiving calls like, I don't have food, I don't know where is my husband, and people who was dying. So we saw the pain in our community, and this building was just, like somebody said before, this is the building where belongs to the community, and we opened the door for them. So we decided to have this opportunity, belong to La Jornada, who's a big organization in Queens who provide the food to us. We decided to run this food pantry. And what's amazing, this part, because we cannot run just alone, Queens Museum, a food pantry. We have the same community from Corona who are our volunteers. We start about with 40 volunteers. Right now we have 135 volunteers who are working with us every single Wednesday. We open doors for people who really need this food. It's about $150 that they can go home with this fresh food, dry food, sometimes it's chicken, sometimes it's eggs, rice, just things that you need, and now everything is expensive. In that time, you cannot find it, nothing. Well, also Carmen, who belongs to BordeAndo, she's part of this organization. We work together. She was the coordinator in that time, 2 years ago, where we're just giving diapers to the families. Everything in that time was outside of the museum. We have the space, kind of storage for the food that we're receiving, and people just came, make lines with the cars. We start with 1,000 tickets for people who came. That was just crazy. Now I cannot believe how we did that. It was really crazy to just serve 1,000 people every Wednesday coming here. But when you see the face in them and say thank you, that was everything for us. So I just want to be very clear with this initiative, because I'm so grateful that Queens Museum is still joining us with this. It's still open doors. 2021, we decided to have all of the families who came inside of the museum. So now you can come every Wednesday also. You need to make an appointment, or we can help you. and people came inside. Sometimes I'm gonna talk about a little bit for what we're doing inside of the museum sometimes. We have tables for information. We have organizations like Hispanic Federation, Common Point, the Department of Labor, another organization who provide information to the community. It's just not important the food, it's also information who can help us with some things that we don't provide directly. And then before, we package everything. Just we give bags to the families that we have everything there. But then we think about it that we have two communities who join us. It's the Spanish community and the Asian community. So those two communities we think are completely different and they don't regularly use the same things. So now what we're doing, all 2021, was a kind of supermarket. You come inside the museum, the triangle, we set up all the stuff and they decide what they want to get. And we are glad they really enjoy it. And I'm gonna talk about a little more later about the programming that we have because it's just not food.
No, thank you, Gia. And I think it's so important to mention this idea of also the food pantry as being a place to empower people because there's so much stigma attached to going to one. And it's this idea that, you know, having it laid out kind of as a very nice supermarket and people could come and take what they want and they can go on a tour if they want, they can, you know, be part of this space because we like to say that we're a community museum and this space belongs to the community. So it's this idea that you can come and get food to nourish your body, but also, you know, look at the beautiful art, look at the different things that are happening in this space to nourish your soul as well. And so just a quick follow-up with regards to that is, can you talk about the importance of art education programming as a direct response to the needs of the Cultural Food Pantry visitors?
So yeah, our first response was food insecurity. We provide the food, we provide some kind of research for them, but later we think about, okay, so this is a difficult thing because we used to like be in museum to receive people who likes art, who wants to know about specific artists, program about culture, but these people who came for the food, they just want food. So what we're gonna do now? That was the question for all the staff, right? We spent a lot of meetings thinking about it. And we start providing first, the first program that we did with the families was a tour in Spanish, and then Mandarin for our lovely panorama. So we teach people who came for food about the panorama. And we found that all of them didn't know that we have this space here and we can see all New York in one specific place. So that was just the beginning. And then we are trying to do family programs that Laura mentioned with Niceli, who's part of course, the community. Also to provide more information to the volunteers. English classes are in our minds too. We are gonna start a demonstration cooking classes with New Yorkers, you know. Next week, we are gonna do these classes in Spanish and also Mandarin because we want to put together these communities and some kind of understand each other. Gonna be a series of demonstration cooking classes. You're welcome to come. And we are gonna start with the Peruvian food because I'm Peruvian and it's the best food in the world. So, but there was things like we have mental health by Zoom. Right now, in this moment, we have about 20 of our volunteers and families who are joining Zumba class by Zoom. We have raffle with the Hispanic Federation. We did a big event here providing education, arts, and right now we are working with 6 of the leaders of the volunteers, 6 women who are powerful in the community. Every single ones that are here, they're involved in a lot of things. We provide more information to them. We want to do a workshop for leadership for them. And still, it's just, the ideas are just going on, running a lot. Another thing that we were working with the food pantry and the families is the street lab. We provide some space for the kids in the summer or time of, or the school is closed. And then I think that is what I can remember right now. But
Thank you, Gia. For Carmen, as a local community partner, what are some ways that Queens Museum and BordeAndo can work together to support the needs of local community?
Buenas tardes. My name is Carmen. I am from Mexico. My English is so I help Guido this translation. So I talk in Spanish. Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Carmen del colectivo BordeAndo. Les voy a explicar un poco qué es BordeAndo.
Hello? Yeah. Okay, so she said exactly the same thing, but in Spanish. My name is Carmen, and she's part of the colectivo BordeAndo, which means kneeling, and yeah, I hope that you hear me. Okay, thank you.
Bueno, BordeAndo es un colectivo formado de 5 mujeres de diferentes países, México, Ecuador, Perú.
BordeAndo is a collective made of 5 women from Mexico, Ecuador,
Perú.
and Peru. Yeah. See, very easy. Now everybody knows Spanish here.
Fue formado hace 5 años por Mónica Carrillo, la ex organizadora comunitaria.
It was founded by Mónica Carrillo, who was at that time working as Gia is working now as a community organizer. Yeah.
Lo siento, estoy un poquito nerviosa.
I'm sorry, I'm a little nervous.
Bueno, y doy gracias al Queen Museo porque nos han abierto las puertas para servir a nuestra comunidad.
I thank you, Queens Museum, because Queens Museum has opened its door to serve our community.
Creo que si todos los museos abrieran la oportunidad y abrieran las puertas como el Queen Museo a los pequeños colectivos, sería beneficio para toda nuestra comunidad.
I think if all the rest of the museums will open the doors that Queen Museum is opening its door, it will serve, our community better.
BordeAndo ha hecho trabajos con nuestra comunidad. Les voy a poner un ejemplo. En Corona Plaza.
BordeAndo has done many, sorry, can you repeat that?
Hemos hecho trabajos con la comunidad.
BordeAndo has done work with the community.
En Corona Plaza.
At Corona Plaza.
Que es un espacio libre donde se puede hablar con la gente, enseñarle. Nosotros les enseñamos cómo agarrar un crochet, una aguja.
And those activities have been taking place at Corona Plaza, which is a very important space in Corona neighborhood here in Queens. It's a kind of triangle next to the train station, the 91, no? Well, there is a Corona train station, and it's well known in the community. So in this space, this group of women have teach how to kneel and how to make a crochet to the community.
Y lo que también hemos aprendido en esta pandemia más que nada, cómo nuestra comunidad ha sufrido. Creo que todos hemos sufrido, pero creo que la comunidad latina es la que le ha afectado un poco más.
And we have learned in this pandemic that however, all the community has suffered, but Latinx community, the comunidad latina, has suffered even more.
Y nosotros como BordeAndo, como el colectivo de mujeres que somos, siempre queremos ayudarles en lo poco que nosotros podemos, les enseñamos.
And as a collective made of women, we want to help and we want to teach them, whatever we can teach and help.
Nosotros recientemente terminamos un proyecto con la comunidad, bordando historias, contando nuestras historias.
We have just finished a project based in the community, which is kneeling like blankets and telling stories.
El nombre es muy bonito y lo escogimos entre todas las que estuvimos en ese momento, en ese proyecto, porque es bordando historias en comunidad.
And the name that we choose all together is a very beautiful name, which is Kneeling Stories in Community.
Y fue bonito, pero también triste, porque si ustedes hubieran visto el bordado que hicieron, son historias de lo que sufrieron en la pandemia, y son historias, nosotros lo podemos ver que es algo bordado, pero no sabemos el significado, pero cuando se hizo, las historias fueron muy desgarradoras porque hubo lágrimas.
And the final product of this project is at the same time beautiful and at the same time sad, because the stories that are told in this blanket, in this kneeling space, are sad stories, and when we saw them, we had tears in our eyes.
BordeAndo también siempre está junto a la comunidad. Cuando yo digo junto a la comunidad, hay que estar, por ejemplo, cuando vamos a coger comida, hacer una línea para esperar el turno de que nos den un poco de comida. Es muy triste porque hay historias en las líneas que a veces nosotros como sociedad vemos a la persona que está parada así en la línea, pero no sabemos detrás qué es lo que trae esa persona, y cuando uno se vuelve voluntario, ve realmente la necesidad que la comunidad tiene.
As a volunteer, when we hear stories, waiting to pick up food in these long lines, it is very interesting to hear all these different stories, and that way you understand the pain and the necessities of the community too.
Y también lo que yo he visto, que ahora con esta pandemia nosotros nos hemos vuelto números, nos hemos olvidado de la humanidad, que también sentimos, que también lloramos.
And we have also realized during this pandemic is that we have become numbers, and we have lost our humanity, and that people has forgotten about our feelings, that we are humans, that we suffer.
Y creo que si nosotros como sociedad aportáramos un poquito y si nos sentáramos a preguntar el que está al lado de nosotros, específicamente a la comunidad latina, ¿qué necesidad tiene y en qué nosotros podemos ayudar? Yo sé que hay psicólogos, pero a veces el psicólogo hace su trabajo, pero si nosotros como sociedad nos sentáramos a ser como su psicólogo, pero amigo, que nos puedan llamar a la hora que sea y enseñarle lo que nosotros sabemos.
Well, there's a lot to translate. But I'm going to try to compact that. And taking, the last line of that we have lost our humanity and that we became just numbers, she is asking us if we as society, as community, we stop and we meditate a little bit on the necessities of the community, especially in the Latinx community, and what are we feeling what do we need. If we became in a way a psychologist, but as a friend, listening, the feelings of the other, everything will be a little better.
Y si también se abrieran más programas que nos dieran la oportunidad de nosotros, la comunidad, enseñar a nuestra propia comunidad, creo que sería fantástico.
And if there are more programs that open to help our community, it will be fantastic.
También lo que yo he visto en esta pandemia es que nosotros a veces vemos a las personas cuando van a llenar un papel y no lo quieren hacer y nos piden de favor, pero a veces no sabemos que esa persona no sabe leer, no sabe escribir.
And sometimes we see when we are in these lines and there is a requirement of filling some paper work, and we don't know why the person is waiting and not taking action. It probably is because that person doesn't know how to write or read.
Yo como BordeAndo pienso que si se dieran clases de alfabetización, yo pienso que no es necesario tener un título de ser un maestro, pero si yo como ser humano y sé escribir, sé leer, ¿por qué no enseñarle al que no sabe?
And I think there is the need of more classes for alphabetization of the people. And if I, as a human being, I know how to write and read, why others can't do the same thing, can have the same opportunities learning how to write or read?
Yo por ahora, yo vi la necesidad que tiene la comunidad y sobre todo los que no saben leer y escribir, y yo me hice voluntaria para ayudar a dar clases de alfabetización y los estoy dando martes y jueves en La Jornada, que es mi sitio de distribución de alimentos, que también yo ahí distribuyo en los jueves, viernes y sábado.
Okay, I'm going to try to remember the days. Also because of the pandemic, she realized the necessities of our community, and she decided that she was going to start teaching others how to write and read. And so she's doing that during the time of La Jornada, which is this organization. And you are teaching, ¿estás enseñando los días?
Martes y jueves.
Tuesdays and Thursdays she's teaching, but also from 7 to 9.
En La Jornada.
At La Jornada.
Y yo no soy una maestra, yo no tengo un título, pero la satisfacción que yo he visto desde que empezamos ese programa, ustedes no se imaginan la satisfacción que yo siento cuando veo una persona que ya aprende a distinguir las letras, que ya sabe escribir su nombre.
And you cannot imagine how I can feel, the amount of happiness that I can feel when I see a person that didn't know how to write its name, and now they can distinguish, the vowels, the letters, and put those letters together to write the name of the person. So that is something that is very touching for her.
Yo pienso que si todos como seres humanos que somos, ayudáramos a las personas, creo que creceríamos mucho mejor como seres humanos.
And if we as humans put all of our best willingness to do things for the others, we will grow up better and we will be better human beings.
Y BordeAndo no solamente quiere quedarse aquí en Corona, en Queens, BordeAndo está a ir a Bronx, Brooklyn, a enseñar a la comunidad lo que nosotros sabemos, queremos enseñar a la comunidad.
And BordeAndo has a desire of staying not only in Queens, but also going to different boroughs in New York, like Brooklyn or I don't know, Manhattan, whatever other boroughs, and teach what they know.
Creo que por ahora eso es todo porque no los quiero aburrir.
I think that is all for now because I don't want to bother you. In the translation, you know, always you lose a lot of words and things. She spoke even more wonderful things that I was not able really to translate. So sorry about that.
Thank you so much, Guido and Carmen. It was so important for us to have a representative from BordeAndo here because, you know, we work with many community partners, but when you talk about a community partner who's present in the museum on a weekly basis, not just with the Cultural Food Pantry, but having their own meetings, leading their own art-making workshops. They were part of our summer camp last year for our community, and they led different workshop classes. They worked with Suzanne Lacey. Some of the leaders from BordeAndo are also part of, you know, the leaders of the Cultural Food Pantry. So when you have time to see some of Suzanne Lacey's exhibition, they helped to kind of elevate and activate the Sunken Living Room, which is an exhibition. So when you go and you see it, you'll see more. So I just really am so fortunate that Carmen was able to be here to kind of lend that knowledge and it's important when we talk about arts education at an institution like the Queens Museum to highlight the work that the community is doing. Like we could not do that. So thank you for being able to do that. And I just want to wrap it up now, and I want to wrap it up in a hopeful way. So my question, and I'm going to pass it on to you, Laura, is as we come out of this uncertain time and begin to shape a new normal, what do you hope the Queens Museum can do to continue to keep its communities at the heart of its work?
The short answer would be keep listening. It is super important to keep listening, and I think one of the biggest takeaways during the pandemic for us as an arts organization, for any arts organization, is that we are all community outreach people. It's not just limited to one department, one person. Everything we're doing should center the community and especially for teaching artists out in the community to spread the word about programming, bring people back into the institution, and make that a space, make it a welcoming space for them. So I think that would be the biggest takeaway, and to keep listening in all the work that you do.
Listening, so important. What about you, Gia?
Okay, so I'm agree with Laura. It's important to listen our community. We can create programs, events, things that we think that are great, but if the community didn't want it or didn't fix in this, it's impossible to do it. It's just a waste of time. So first thing, of course, listening. And the second one for me, I think is Queens Museum is already in that way. I feel that Queens Museum is a community museum. Now that we open doors, just not for the food pantry, family programs, art access, BordeAndo, groups like BordeAndo, they are one of our community partners here at the museum, but we have more, and we want more partners that we can together build something better for the community. So partners are very important for me too.
Carmen?
Bueno, a mí me gustaría
Well, I would like
que aquí en el museo si se pudieran dar clases de alfabetización y que hubiese más voluntarios, creo que dieran un poquito de su tiempo, ayudemos a la comunidad más vulnerable que lo necesita.
She's asking for more volunteers and more classes here at the museum, and because teaching to learn how to write and read is very important, and there is a lot of people in the need of that.
Creo que si nosotros creciéramos más de corazón sensible,
I think that if we open our hearts and we'll be more sensible and sensitive people,
ayudaríamos mucho a la sociedad, pero sobre todo no nos olvidemos de pensar solamente nosotros en la necesidad que nosotros tenemos. También el que está afuera necesita de nuestra ayuda.
and we have to think that not only in our need, we have to think that those that are outside, they need our help too.
y me gustaría que aquí hubiera programas de alfabetización y BordeAndo está dispuesto a ayudar a la comunidad y si hay alguien que se quiera sumar es bienvenido.
BordeAndo is willing to do its best and teach, and she is asking for more programs in situ here for our community, and they, BordeAndo as a collective, they are willing to teach. They are willing to teach not only kneading but also writing and reading, etc.
Creo que en esta pandemia yo creo que muchos hemos aprendido muchas cosas, pero nosotros cuando bordamos le llamamos que es una terapia mental psicológica.
I think during the pandemic we have learned a lot of things, but for us in BordeAndo, within that, knitting has been a therapy, psychological therapy for us.
Pero a eso le hace falta, yo siempre digo que le hace falta como algo más.
But there is something else that is needed.
Y creo que si, a mí no me gusta llamar la palabra zumba, a mí me gusta la palabra ven, bailemos por nuestra salud.
And I don't like the word Zumba. What I like is to say, let's go and dance for our health.
Porque nuestra salud es lo más importante. BordeAndo con bordar es terapia mental, pero también el cuerpo necesita moverse.
Because in kneeling and BordeAndo, we do this mental therapy, but also the body needs to move and need that kind of therapy too.
Y aprender a comer sano.
And learn how to eat healthy.
Porque lamentablemente yo he conocido a muchas personas con depresión y yo en lo que puedo trato de ayudarles, trato de ser como, darles mucho ánimo.
I have met many people with distress and sadness, and in whatever I can, I want to help them.
Yo creo que siempre necesitamos de que alguien nos impulse y nos diga, sí puedes, hagámoslo, pero no sola, sino que juntos.
And I think that most of the time we need somebody to tell us that yes, we can, but
porque
together.
Sí podemos, pero
Because, yes, we can.
Si nos ayudan a tener más programas, creo que sería fantástico, beneficio para la comunidad, pero también para nosotros mismos, porque sentir que somos útil en esta vida.
And it will be wonderful to have more programs, and that you can help us to have more programs. But also, it is not only good for the people that are going to receive those benefits of the program, but for us to feel that we are useful.
Yo quisiera decirle muchas cosas, pero yo me gusta hablar mucho, pero mejor me quedo ya hasta ahí nomás.
I would like to say too many things, but because I'm very outspoken, and so better to stop now.
Thank you. I just want to thank our panel. And as we kind of go into the day now, I just wanted to just highlight a lot of these initiatives that we're working on in the education department, in the public programs department. They're evolving, and we're looking to launch some exciting new things. We're also looking to work with new teaching artists. So if you're a teaching artist out there, stop one of these people if you would like to work with us. But it's this idea that we're talking about community, and obviously we highlighted the local community, but we all consider you part of our community as well. So as Sally mentioned earlier, this space is your space, and we look forward to hopefully collaborating in different ways and deeper ways. So thank you so much for listening. And this was just a way for us to welcome you into this space, and we hope you have a wonderful, wonderful conference today. Thank you.
Wonderful. Give it up for our panelists one more time. Thank you so much, panelists. Oh, yeah. So we are now going to transition into our lunch. But before we do, I was so excited just to be standing up face to face to all of you. I forgot to thank our sponsors. So I just want to do a quick thank you to our sponsors. We are so grateful for their support. They are truly the ones that help us be able to put on FaceToFace. This is our 29th FaceToFace. So get ready for next year. We will be 30, flirty, and thriving. So thank you to our sponsors. I've been waiting to pull that one out all day. A thank you to our sponsors, NISCA, the Department of Cultural Affairs, M&T Bank, Disney, Center for Fiction, Dance NYC, Volunteer Lawyers for the Arts, Arthur Miller Foundation, City College of New York's Graduate Program in Educational Theater, and LEAP NYC. Give it up for those sponsors.